papers, and even if they don't, you know, if you get a random cop who goes fascist on you, you know, and he goes back to the station and you've been arrested, the sergeant will say, well, you should have called me. But of course they're going to back him up. They're going to back up their guys. They always do. All right? So generally speaking, if you're getting instructions or handling from a white shirt, that's better. Although, if we get to where we got in New York, you saw what happened. Okay, especially with First Amendment activity, they're supposed to have the white shirts doing everything. All right, so it's usually a good thing. But again, we saw something unusual in New York. It was the white shirts who went fascist. That's why I say that was deliberate. That was not rogue cops. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were trying to send a message. They were trying to scare people. And you guys should understand that. All right? They're scared to death of you. Okay? The plutocrats, the bankers, they've been wondering why there haven't already been riots in the streets. Okay? And they're scared. They're really scared. I mean, there was a story floating around on Facebook about the financial reporter who basically said, well, I finally made it down to Occupy Wall Street. All right, I got a call from the CEO of a bank, and I went down there, and he did kind of this patronizing story. And the way that got the meme on Facebook was, here's this fucking reporter who's going to cover a story because some bank CEO told him to do it. All right, which, yeah, that's bad. But if you read the story and listen to what the banker said, he said, what's going on with this Occupy Wall Street? Is there any reason for me to fear for my personal safety? They're scared. They know what they did. They know exactly what they did. Okay, when they sit down and have meetings about what's going on with this financial crisis, you better believe they are discussing riots, they are discussing crowd control, they are discussing how are we going to manage it when people rebel. They've expected this, all right? And they are scared now. You've got them scared. Make no mistake about that.
Giving the NYPD $46 million.
Yeah.
4.6? Okay, I exaggerated.
Now they've really, those rich fucks, they've really been wondering, well, when are there going to be riots in the streets? Now they see you guys. All right, they were thinking more London. You know, people of color looting. Well, we know how to tell that story. Oh, these people are terrible. They're destroying their own neighborhoods. But what do you do with a bunch of nice college kids who are basically saying, you screwed me out of my future, Jacob? Yeah. Okay, and you're going to pay for it. Yeah. That's not a story they can really deal with. You better believe you got them scared.
Can you give us the current word on recording police officers in Chicago?
Yes. As of right now, it is a felony to record not just police officers. As of right now, and it has been for a long time, it is a felony to record a conversation without the consent of every party to the conversation.
Is that just audio or video?
Audio. Video's fine. Take all the video you want, just disable audio. All right? It is a felony. You know, if you recorded me secretly, it's a felony. All right? There are currently cases being litigated as to whether that can be applied to a police officer doing his job in public. All right? But we haven't got a definitive decision yet, so it's risky to do audio on a cop. I've seen a number of responses. They have ranged from felony arrest, okay, to, you know, just last week when the commander was out on the street, somebody walked up with this video phone and started recording. He just turned and said, I'd rather not be recorded. All right? Other times, people have run videos with audios and they don't care. All right? But understand, they only decided to start enforcing this law like a couple of years ago. All right? But since they've done it. All right? So be aware of the fact that you should be very careful about audio. All right, video, if it's in public, you can record it, no consequences. But disable the audio unless you want to take a risk. Yes?
This is for everyone. If you are going to be taking a video, one tip that people are saying is if you have a jack for earphones, plug it in that jack. So that the recording doesn't have to take out its otherwise, it might have audio.
Yeah, you know, that's, be careful. If you can disable the audio, that's even better.
What if it's for press purposes?
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing.
There's no
That's
press.
the thing. Again, police officers have discretion. And when, you know, when the official mainstream media is there with cameras and recorders, they don't complain. All right? But when they're arresting somebody and that person is running a cell phone, they decide to enforce it. It's called arbitrary enforcement. All right? Understand, if you do it, you're taking a risk. So they could theoretically arrest a reporter.
So from the person who is streaming this,
I'm not going to have you arrested.
no, my question is it possible to have like a lit sign that says live stream or something?
You actually have to get their consent. All
So
right?
even if you're already streaming and they walk into it, it's a felony for you.
Technically,
Even if you
all
have this lighted sign that says on, live or something.
you know, the safest way to do it is to get it on the recording. I consent to this recording. That's the only safe way to be sure. But again, they use discretion. And like I said, the commander, he just said, I'd rather not be recorded. She stopped recording. All right? You know, a good way to disarm them is, look, I'm streaming that. Is that a problem for you? Maybe they don't care. Okay. What I'd say, I mean, yeah, it's bad law. A similar law in Massachusetts was just struck down by the United States Court of Appeals for the First Circuit. All right. There is currently a case pending in the United States Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit here. All right. We should probably get a decision soon. But until we get a definitive decision saying that you have a constitutional right to record conversations of police officers in public, realize that you're taking a risk.
Even though they're public servants.
I agree with you, but there's, you know, the guy who was there today, Chris Drew, making the silk screens, he's currently facing a felony prosecution for recording a police officer while they arrested him. All right? And that's terrible. It's an awful thing to face a felony prosecution. I hope and I expect that the Seventh Circuit will strike that part of the law down. But it hasn't happened yet. And the police do make arrests for it. So be aware of the risk.
Is this a danger for people recording like performances or drumming or things like that, or interviews with people? I mean, because if there are people in the shot or something like that, I mean, or is it just the police?
As a practical matter, you're unlikely to get arrested for recording a public performance. I mean, the law is very broad, and it's a weird thing. I mean, it was passed back in the 60s, all right, which is why it's not a video thing, because nobody had video recorders back then. Why was it passed? It was passed by a bunch of crooked politicians who didn't want people recording their conversations secretly. All right? And over the years, you know, the courts have limited it, but then the legislature comes out and strengthens it. All right? So I think it's bad law as applied to a police officer or any public official doing his job in public. All right? And I really hope and believe that the Seventh Circuit will decide exactly that, but until that gets decided, it's risky. Any other questions? Yes.
Just regarding that, there was a guy that faced life, but he got dropped. And on that case, that was the latest case. Two of the judges are like, I think it's total bullshit and it's starting to turn around. Like really.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Yeah,
okay, the way precedent works, all right, those were trial level judges. That's got no precedential
I'm just
value.
saying, so they get scared now.
Yeah, do the video. We're hoping soon that the courts will strike down that part on the audio. But it hasn't happened yet, so you're taking a risk. Yes?
The Chicago police are part of a joint terrorism task force now for the G8 NATO summit.
Right.
Do you know if that might be active, involved in any other protest movements, or is that exclusively, jurisdictions limited to G8 NATO?
They tend to cast a wide net, okay?
Practice
They tend to cast a wide net. The lawyers are already forming their committees on this, and that task force is already active, okay? And those can have just long-standing terrible consequences. You probably heard about all the people who are currently subpoenaed to appear before a grand jury.
Yeah.
Here. All right, you probably heard about those cases. Well, how did that begin? That began with the Republican National Committee in 2008 in Minneapolis. And they had one of these joint terrorism task force. They're putting snitches in the organization. All right, nothing came of it. But here they've spent a fortune, okay, running this undercover operation. They got to do something to justify it. Well, let's throw out a bunch of subpoenas and see what we can find. And, we weren't even there. And there's 23 grand jury subpoenas here. That's the kind of shit that comes from one of these operations. They have long tails to them. All right, they put a woman into one of the organizing committees, an informant. She was there for 2 years. It costs a lot of money to do that. She had nothing to show for it. All right, FBI agent spends a fortune. He's got nothing to show for it. He's going to get in trouble. Well, let's send out some subpoenas and see if we can find some trouble. And especially, all right, if they haven't put the feds on you yet. All right? Well, one thing I'll say for sure is never, ever talk to a federal agent without your lawyer. Never, under any circumstances. Because they're tricky. All right? And what they'll do is the first question they're going to ask you is one that they already know the answer to and that they think you're going to lie about. All right? Have you ever smoked pot? No. Okay, they know you have. You lied to a federal agent, it's a felony. It's called a perjury trap. Okay? And we've got you on a felony, and we own you now, and we'll go easy on you if you continue to work with this group and report to us. That's what happens. Okay? Never, ever talk to a federal agent without your lawyer present. Yes?
What about, how does undercover work? Because I've seen like plainclothes cars. What about plainclothes cops? How does, yeah, is that, how realistic is that?
You know,
They're in New York.
you guys are running a real clean operation. You don't have anything to hide. Is it possible they put infiltrators with you? Yes. Okay. If you don't have anything to hide, don't worry about it too much. All right. You got to avoid paranoia. All right. It's a tricky business. I mean, because sometimes they'll make somebody out to be a snitch just to fuck things up. All right, the technique is called putting a snitch jacket on somebody. All right, and they do this stuff. All right, I don't know. Use an Irish example. All right, they bring somebody in and they say, well, the IRA thinks you're an FBI snitch, and they want to kill you. What are you going to do? What do you know about that? She was smart. She wouldn't talk to him. Okay, but long story short, ultimately they turn it into a big investigation. They're running around, they show up at your job. Okay, they flash their badges. We're investigating international terrorism and we need to see him right away. Okay, and then your boss freaks out, pulls you into the room, sits you down. Okay, there's these agents, and well, the FBI or the IRA thinks this friend of yours is an FBI informant. Do you know anything about that? Okay, you do that to 20, 30 people, next thing you know, everybody thinks she really is an FBI informant. Okay? False allegations of being an informant can be